I think this is probably true of almost every founder, certainly every first-time founder, which is for every person that truly believes in you, there are going to be 100 who either don't believe in you or don't care. That could be investors, it can be potential customers, it can be potential team members. And so what I believe is from the people who believe in you, those are gold. Draw your inspiration from those people.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I am your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several businesses to 7- and 8-figure companies, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. And today we have a great guest on the podcast to tell another good journey, Jonathan Stern. And Jonathan was a consultant for 25 years, and then he realized that consultant products were going to be unsustainable and wanted to switch it. And then he left Bain after being a partner for a while, and then launched Snapstrat about 4 years ago. And so he'll tell you a little bit more about all of his journey and what they're doing now with if I can say it right, Snapstrat. And welcome onto the podcast, John.
Hey, thanks, Evan. Appreciate it, and appreciate the opportunity to tell my story.
So I gave just a very short intro, but maybe if you want to walk through and we can get into a little bit more detail, kind of a little bit about your journey and what led you up to Snapstrat. I'm going to end up getting tongue-tied the whole time. Snapstrat.
Yeah, I will say that we the name. I'll deviate a little into the name Snapstrat because obviously there's a Snapchat thing that comes out of it, but. We wanted a name that evoked both strategy, the ability to adhere to something, and speed. So that's the origin of Snapstrat. It actually, once you say it a few times, it gets easier. So I as I mentioned, I spent 25 years in strategy consulting, and I love the problem-solving aspects. I love engaging with teams on really hard problems, but it's a client service business, and what I found is that we were turning over at the end of a strategy engagement a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint deck that tried to provide a roadmap to a company on the set of strategic decisions it would need to make over the next usually 2 to 3 years. And as I went through my career, and business cycles began to get faster and faster, and customer needs were changing faster and faster, and competitors were evolving quicker and quicker. The half-life of that PowerPoint or that spreadsheet was getting shorter and shorter. And what my clients wanted more than anything else was not just advice, but an asset that helped them to change, to help them make the decisions that turn strategy into execution. And I started to look around. I was, as my clients were asking me for tools instead of the spreadsheet, something that was sustainable, I started to look around. Did this thing exist? Was there someone who was doing this? And I realized there wasn't. The space was wide open for a variety of reasons. Technology was evolving to a place where you could build a platform that would do some of the things that not all the things, but some of the things strategy consultants do in a way that was sustainable for its customers. And so after researching the market,
really quick on that one. So you say unsustainable, and I know you touched on this a little bit, but what were the things that made it unsustainable, or saying, hey, this is what I need to fix or what we need to do different?
Sure. Yeah. When you make a decision, so strategy sets a long-term direction. Like, here's the set of customers I want to go after, or here's a set of geographies I want to move into. That's sort of a strategy with a big S. The value you realize from that strategy happens through a series of decisions that are made when you make that strategy execution. So I'm going to move, let's take a geographic strategy. It's an easy one to think about. The strategy might be you're going to move into 10 countries. In the next, every 6 months, you got to figure out what country I'm going to move into, where, how much money I'm going to spend, what kind of marketing, what kind of products I'm going to put in that country. Those are the decisions that turn the strategy actually into getting value. And what was happening when we talk about sustainability was, in the old days, 25 years ago when I started this, 3 years was not a very long time in the evolution of business. So the business world, if you made a decision year 1, year 3, that decision was going to be pretty much still okay. Fast forward today's world, you make the decision 3 months, it's not okay. And so
Especially in the
sustainability is
last few
about,
months, you make a decision that, a week ago and it's not the same.
yeah. So this world has become this really agile, moving thing, right?
Mm.
And the way that management teams operate, for those of you who've lived in corporate, the corporate world, is still stuck in this really old paradigm of meetings and spreadsheets and consultants. And we're just moving that into what technology allows, which is just an agile digital capability that the companies can use to kind of have their strategy always relevant.
Okay, no, I think that makes good sense as far as really trying, taking what people were used to for a long period of time and may have worked in the day when everything was less connected, and I would put it as, a plethora of things. One, internet didn't used to connect everybody so much. Everybody wasn't connected with the phone. Everybody wasn't connected with an email. What happened in Europe didn't impact the US as quickly as or what happened in Greece or somewhere else. And, everything has just become a lot more interconnected, a lot faster pace, and everything has more, a lot more interrelated impacts on each other than it might have been. So I certainly get the the unsustainable nature of looking back and trying to say the way we did it a while ago before everything was interconnected doesn't work now. So you did the strategy consulting for a while, and if I remember, or remind me, part of that was with Bain, or you were a partner at Bain, or was that at the same time, or was that afterwards, or how did that play in?
No, so I started my career, I was a software developer actually out of college, and jumped from that into McKinsey back in the late 80s when they were first beginning to worry about technology. Like, technology mattered to companies. It was starting to be more than just a MIS system that ran accounting. It was a competitive differentiator. And so that was always my role. I went from McKinsey, I went to Booz Allen, I went to Accenture, became a partner at Accenture, and then spent 12 years as a partner at Bain. So it was so I'm kind of back to my roots in the sense that now I'm back to software again.
So I think that partly answered my question, but I couldn't remember. Bain, is that part of the consulting? Or that wasn't part of the consulting, right? Or
that is consulting, yeah. Bain is two. Bain actually split off many years ago. Bain Capital, which sort of what Mitt Romney founded, and so that's gotten a lot of press over the last 5 years. Versus Bain Consulting, which is a consulting firm. It was founded as a consulting firm. So I was part of Bain Consulting, not part of Bain.
Okay, got you. So you did Bain Consulting, and you did that for quite a long time, 25 years plus. And during that period of time, I'm sure you did a lot of consulting, a lot of work. And so how was it? And was there anything, so you left Bain after being a partner there for quite a long time doing consulting and went back to kind of your software roots. How was that transition, right? So it seems like, a lot of times when you get into, doing, corporate America, and that always has such a bad connotation, bigger business or something with a lot of resources or, with a lot of reach and a lot of those type of things. And, how is it to make that transition from that to more of a startup or your own business?
I don't think I could have ever imagined how hard it would be. Because it wasn't, and part of it is the support system, the security, but a partner in a consulting firm is a good job. You're comfortable, everyone listens to you, you're kind of high status, right? I mean, and so the way the world perceives you and the way sort of business comes to you is actually, it's not easy, but it's most people believe in you just by the fact that I'm a partner of Bain. Oh, I respect you. And you've got these teams around you of brilliant people, and the business is relationships that have been forged over many years. Fast forward into a startup. First of all, the domain knowledge required to run a startup is, everything from trying to figure out where are we going to sit to our HR policy to finance to every aspect of running a company. And you just that's an eye-opener because you don't realize how much work that stuff really is to get right and how important it is. And then the world doesn't notice you anymore. They'll notice you the first couple of months. You've been through this, right? But suddenly you're like this invisible blot in this company that does no percentage of anyone's mind share. When you say, hey, I'm from Snapchat, the Snapchat, or they can't, and so you become from this sort of high status, high profile individual to running a company that no one's ever heard of. And boy, you know, yeah, you have to really believe, right? I mean,
Mm.
you have to really persist, and that, you know, yeah, it's a very hard transition. And you know, I did it because I wanted a hill climb. That's what I've done in my career. I didn't come out of a traditional background of consulting. I also had something to prove in consulting. At some point, I felt like I proved it, and I'm just motivated by you know, being able to have this hill to climb. And so it's at the same time very motivating, but also, you know, it's really hard. It continues to be every day, because, you know, the world is not going to flock to you. And I will say one more thing: it's the popular press around startups, as you know, you get the glamour stories of the, you know, 1 in 100,000 who, you know, become a unicorn in a year. That, and so there's this perception, but the reality of most of the success stories is really, really hard work. And it's a lot of persistence. And so you have to kind of just learn to internalize it. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, but to say that it was like, oh, this easy, simple thing, I'll just step into it and oh, we'll be good. No, not even close.
No, and I agree. I mean, there is certainly, you know, almost a prestige or some, you know, when you work with a bigger company or name recognition, and you especially been there a long time and get a higher position in the company, it carries that weight, right? And then you make the transition, and, you know, people that would previously, not that they won't maybe take your call, but they're not going to take you go down a few levels on importance as far as how quickly they'll take your car, or if they'll respond, or if they'll offer some aid, because before they were trying to make you happy because you were working at a big company and they wanted to keep relations, or they wanted to land that business, or whatever the case may be. When you're at, you know, at a startup, you know, and typically they're going to say, well, you're not worth, you know, not in a mean sense, but you're not worth my time, or, you know, I have much more higher important things to do. And so it can make it more difficult to get their attention. So nonetheless, so you make that transition, you jump out of, you know, big business, or you jump out of Bain, go towards Snapstrat. Said it right that time, or I didn't stumble that time. And so you do that. You've been doing that for 4 years. So how has that journey gone? So you as you started to build it, you had the idea we're going to move things into a, you know, more faster pace, or be able to make it sustainable. How have you been able to how has that last 4 years gone for you?
So, you know, one really nice thing that's somewhat unusual for enterprise software startups, not unheard of, but the vision has been absolutely consistent with the day, you know, I had the concept to where we are today. I mean, the belief that we could take this category of decisions and turn that into a, you know, software platform that we could configure for a specific company with a specific decision has always been consistent. And the market need is very clear as the conversations we have. And so that part of the journey, having that kind of guidepost that's sort of been there the whole way, has been great. But I didn't understand, and a lot of the journey is learning the how. And there's so many pieces to the how. So how do you build a team? What kind of skills do you need? What is actually that technology platform look like? When I started the company, we didn't have a CTO. We have a very skilled CTO now, who knows how to build it, but I didn't know. I just knew that it was possible, but I didn't know, you know, exactly how complex and difficult it was going to be to build. And so we've learned that, we've built that, we've acquired, you know, a couple of landmark customers, Sephora and Frontier Communications. So top of a couple of, you know, Fortune 1000 companies that are very high profile. That's been a huge boon to us. So that part of seeing the product doing what it should do and seeing technology evolve has been great. The single thing that's just that I look back and always get wrong is how long everything takes. Like everything takes, whether it's building technology, whether it's finding customers, whether it's finding, you know, the right team, whatever it is, it's going to take 2 times as long as you think it should. It's just because you're making mistakes constantly along the way. More than anything else, a startup, as you know, is a journey of mistakes and recovery, not a journey of doing everything right. It's a journey of doing 95% of the things wrong, but then recognizing them and changing course. And so that's how we work, but that makes things take longer.
No, and I think many times as you always hear that, if it takes, double the amount of time and double the amount of money, everybody also thinks they're always the exception, right? You always think, yeah, that's for everybody else. And yeah, it'll take double the amount of time, double the amount but I'm the exception. I planned it out well, and I've got this covered, and we're going to, and I think it's right. And I think everybody, a lot of times you have to gone through that to just say, okay, it's right. It does take double the amount of time. It does take double the amount of the effort. And no matter how much you plan, double that, because even if you think you're the exception, great, but double it anyway, because more likely than not, you're going to be you're going to be like everybody else, and it's going to take more time and effort and money than you thought it would. So now as you've built that, you've got, fast forwarding open almost to where you're at today. So you've built it, you've, gone through some of those longer time and money and effort than you thought it would, landing some larger clients, or, landing some clients, starting to get some traction. So where do you think, the next 6 to 12 months will take you? Where do you see that or that headed?
Yeah, I mean, we're scaling the company, which is a big, so you think about the stages. The first stage of the company is, okay, let me understand what product we're actually trying to sell, and let's find a customer, right? Get enough around it so we can sell something. The next stage is you're actually building out, kind of using that customer relationship to kind of build out, the product, make sure that there's a need in the market and that product meets that need. And then we're at this stage now, which, okay, that exists. How do we take that? And obviously it continues to evolve, the product and the market fit, but how do you take that and scale it? So we're going from 2 customers to 5 customers to 10 customers to 100 customers. And that's our journey right now. And so that it changes our focus. So as a CEO, I've actually been spending the last couple of years a very high degree of my time on the product and and making sure that it meets the needs of the customers. Now I'm spending all of my time on both the market and increasingly on investors, so that we can begin to grow the company from the 2 customers to the 100 customers. And it's just very different. Again, it's a new mindset. It's very much outward facing. It's finding the first customers was all about network and relationship. The next set of customers is much more about a numbers game, being highly persistent, to continuing to go after those customers, very targeted messaging, because these are people that haven't heard of you. So there's a very sort of a nuance on that that part of the job. And so for me, it's just another one of many transitions, right? I'm going from being kind of a product focused CEO to one that's very sales focused. And it's like anything else, it's an outline, another thing to learn, another thing to stumble through.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting. I mean, because I think that speaks to a lot of what the transition that most companies have to go through, and kind of reminds me, take this or just tangent for a second. So I always like to read books, and I think I may have mentioned this on 1 or 2 episodes. Otherwise, so generally, at heart, I'm a startup entrepreneur, love the small business type of guy, and so. But if I ever have free time, most of the time when people ask me what my hobby is, I just usually say startups. But if I do have time outside of that and I'm doing a hobby, a lot of times I'll read books, and I'll read books that are more on the biography or telling the story of a business or an individual. And so one of the reasons, my wife always gives me a hard time that my whole life is startups, so why would I go read books about other startups, and how do I find that interesting? But nonetheless, I do. So I was reading a book recently read a book, and it's that will never work, and it's really about the story of Mark Randolph, which is the founder of Netflix. And even though now you hear Steve Hastings a lot of times, it's really Mark Randolph that came up with the idea and built it. The tangent is Steve Hastings was a former business partner of his. They worked together in a previous venture, and they drive to work together as they were commuting. And he would, he pitched the idea of a whole bunch of ideas off of them, one of which was Netflix. Steve Hastings says that will never work. And then obviously they went on to build it. But the tangent that I was getting back to the point is that, they went through a progression where they had a lot of generalists. You almost start a company or a startup with a lot of generalists. And I say, have to wear multiple hats, have to be able to do everything and do it well, or do it well enough in order to get things accomplished. And yet as a business evolves, it transitions from you have to do or be a generalist. You have to be a specialist, right? You have to be able to now have people that can do something very well, do it just to, specialize in that. And so you have to do that. And so as Netflix, as they were transitioning, Mark Randolph basically had Steve Hastings to come down and said, you've done a great job. So now as CEO, but for the next stage, we have to find a new CEO, and basically I'll be that person. And they had to make that transition. But I thought it was interesting that, whether or not you're the guy or whether or not anybody's a person, or whether or not you have to look at it and say, okay, I've grown it to a point. This is my specialty. I'm the generalist. I can build something, take the idea stage. Some people can make that transition very well. And others are saying, nope, it's grown to past the point that I can do. I'm out, and I'll let somebody else take it to the next stage. So I think that everybody goes through those growing pains as a startup, whether or not you make the transition, somebody else makes it for you, or however that plays. I think it's an interesting kind of common thread throughout a lot of businesses.
Yeah, no, it's the way I view it is we have a great team. We're really, really fortunate, and the CEO's job, in my view, is one is to get out of the way, reduce the stress, give them the resources they need, and I view myself as more working for the team as them working for me, and so. My job is to fill in the spots where we need help the most, and to stay out of the way where we don't. And that's, as long as I can do that, then that's the right thing for me. At the moment, I can't. My goal, and the goal of our team, and even our advisory team, is we want to build a spectacular, very large company in a new category. And if we're gonna do that, we're gonna do that collectively, and whatever, and the whole attitude is, well, whatever it takes, right? And so I think kind of self-awareness of those kinds of things is, and is important, and you have to understand where your skills are and where you don't have them, right? I mean, knowing what you're not good at as a leader is probably more important than knowing what you're good at.
No, I think that's very good advice. So, well, as we're reaching towards the end of the podcast, and always plenty more things we could talk on, but as we reach the end, I always ask 2 questions at the end of each podcast. So maybe we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always ask is, so what was your worst business decision you ever made?
So coming from consulting, the first thing in consulting, when you start a new project or something, okay, let's get the right team. That's like everything is around a team, right? And so to me, when I started Snapshot, that was just another project, right? Okay, if I get the right team, we'll be great. Let's get the right team and then get started. But the reality of the first 6 months in a startup is you're just trying to get people to talk to, figure out what the product looks like, and find someone who's willing to let you work with them. And that doesn't really take a team. And so we had a team. It was great people, but it wasn't the right team, and there wasn't that much for that team to do. And so we kind of spun around, and it felt really awkward. I mean, it was this real, and so then we landed Sephora, our launch customer, and then shortly after that, we reconfigured the team because we had to have now the right skills to build a technology product, which we hadn't have, and so once we had the customer, you could figure out what team you needed, and so. I think I wasted sort of a lot of time and energy and people's energy on who are along the ride with me at first, just by going to the team too early instead of thinking about what do I really need to do and what's really my role at this stage of the company. So if I started again, it would just be me for a while until I really had enough for a team to do, and then I kind of get people out of need instead of deciding I needed a team to start.
So it's almost at the starting point, the right team was you, and then it needed to grow to a bigger team. But
exactly, do it as you need it, not as not because you think you need a team.
Yeah, and I think that's different for every startup. Sometimes you do need 3 or 4 programmers, or you need 1 programmer, or you need a sales guy because it's really a service company. But I think that defining what that team is and making sure that team may be different on different points in time is something certainly to learn from. So, okay, as we jump to my second question, which is, if you were to talking with somebody that's just getting into a startup or small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
So, I think this is probably true of almost every founder, certainly every first-time founder, which is for every person that, truly believes in you, there are going to be 100 who either don't believe in you or don't care. That can be investors, it can be potential customers, it can be potential team members. And so what I believe is from the people who believe in you, those are gold. Draw your inspiration from those people, right? They are, and you'll recognize them because they're going out of their way. They're putting their reputation on the line. They're often putting their money on the line. They may be putting their careers on the line because they believe in you as an individual and what the concept you have was. And so you can draw a ton of inspiration from those people. But for the 99 who don't believe in you, for all the investor conversations you're going to have where someone says they don't like your idea, here's why. For all the customer conversations where they don't return a call because your number is 78 in their list, and it's just not important enough. Draw your motivation from those people. You got to be to me, because persistence is everything in this business. You got to persist through all of these. For every one positive thing that happens, 30 bad things are going to happen. So how do you get through those? So you draw motivation from. So when an investor says they're not going to invest, I visualize them 5 years from now going, wow, I really wish I invested in Snapstrat. For every team member who decided not to join, I visualize, wow, if I could have gone back and done it then, I would, and I drive my motivation. It's not that those people are bad. It's not that they're even, that's just, I know we're going to succeed. I have this view of it's inevitable. And so that's how I draw that motivation. That's how I kind of sustain it through the fact that all of these, there's so many people who are going to be negative about what you're doing. It doesn't matter how great it is. It's because it's new, people don't recognize it and they don't see it the same way that you do.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good advice as well, is to draw from the positivity of those that are your cheerleaders, that are your support, and certainly take it with a grain of salt. Those that are negative or that don't see the vision and figure out how, as you hit those harder times, how to draw on that positivity. So, well, as we wrap up, as we get finished, if people want to either be your customer, invest in you, they want to, be your cheerleader, they want to be those supportive people or anything else, what's the best way to reach out to you to connect with you?
Jonathan at snapstrat.com or LinkedIn, either one. I'm always happy to talk about what we're doing. Happy to, happy to connect with people in kind of any way. I certainly have had the advantage of having many advisors and mentors along the way, so I'm happy to provide that, or love to find customers and investors as well. So just reach out either via email or on LinkedIn.
All right. I certainly invite everybody to connect and to make those connections, and to be a customer, an investor, or just a cheerleader, and reach out for anything else that they may need. Well, Jonathan, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Fun to talk through your journey and hear what you're doing, and wish you the next leg of your journey, all of the success. And for those of you that would like to be come on and tell your journey on the podcast, feel free to go on to inventivejourneyguest.com to apply. If you are a listener, make sure to subscribe so that you can hear this episode and all the new episodes as they release. And if you ever need any help with patents and trademarks, certainly feel free to reach out to us at Miller IP Law. Jonathan, thank you again for coming on. It was a pleasure. Good luck with the rest of your journey, and have a good one.
Thank you, Devin.